Mhm.
Okay. All right. Nice to see everyone. Good evening. My name is Asumini Kasule, and I'm a youth and parenting coach. I am just by way of introduction, I'm first generation Ugandan American. I know I met some of you at the Dave and Buster's event maybe a while ago. I'm so I really like this Luganda Academy because I know growing up in New Jersey, we actually had something similar, like a Luganda school. Um, and I won't tell you how long ago because then I don't want to date myself, but it was a while ago. We had a Luganda school, and it's really a good initiative just because even though my accent is very American, as my relatives tell me, I can speak Luganda and understand it. And it's just been so helpful to be able to teach my girls that as well. So, as I mentioned, I'm a youth and parenting coach. I have my own business. My background is I started off in corporate world, and I was there for like 20 plus years. My background is in material science and engineering. So I started off and got my bachelor's from Carnegie Mellon University, and then went on to do my master's at Stanford University. And I'll talk a little bit. I like to storytell in my talks, and it'll be engaging to ask questions and everything. But um, uh, I will say that I went through my own journey in corporate where I found that I wasn't really fulfilling my purpose after a while. And I felt that I wanted to pivot. And I was always mentoring youth in my personal time, my volunteering time with Toastmasters, Junior Achievement. And so I decided to take it on as a profession and started my business like 4 years ago. So that's a little bit about me. I have two girls, one who's on her way to college, which
Mhm.
is a big transition for us, and then one who's a junior going on to be a senior.
Wow.
So let's get started. So a participant has requested to start AI companion. I'm just gonna say yes. All right, so let me share my screen. Okay, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
So today, in honor of mental health awareness, and I really thank Rita for organizing this because it's so important for all of us. I'm here to talk about navigating identity, culture, and expectations from the perspective of also how it impacts your mental health. And so the first thing I want to do is actually to do an icebreaker. So if everyone can type in the chat, let me just pull up mine. Um, so because we're talking about, we're going to talk about code switching, go into what that is, and talking about how we can have two different sides of us. So what I want you to type in the chat is, what's your most um, random combination that represents you? And I'm typing the question in the chat. And so there's like things that are unique to us that might represent us, and some of the combinations might be a little bit different. And so you want to do it in two to three things. And so my example is I love Afro beats. I'm a big Michael Jackson fan. I used to dance like Michael Jackson when I was younger. My uncle actually has video, which my kids want to see. And I am all about self-improvement. I've just been doing a lot of discovery on how I can improve myself, like physically, mentally, spiritually, all of those things. And so this is a random combination because I think, most people might not know that about me, right? So Afro beats, Michael Jackson, love it. And then I love self-improvement. And so if you could, in the chat, we'll take 1 to 2 minutes. Each of you just type, what is the random combination um, that represents you? Two or three things, two to three things.
Mm.
All right, and I'll start reading them off shortly. I'll just give people one more minute. All right, so I see some people typed in the chat. I see dancing, music, and nature. Annette, thank you. And Joseph put reading and listening and sports. Nice. We have Carol who talks about being a techie geek, love swimming and gardening. Love that. Um, and Noelle, music and anime and listening. Yeah, a lot of people love anime. People were trying to break that down to me the other day. So nice. And Rita, I love the outdoors, just completed a 50K hike. Oh wow. That's a big hike. Love and community engagement. Where was your hike? Was it here or was it somewhere else? I was just curious. Um, love community engagement and going back to school for your master's. Great to hear. And Maureen, gospel music, my toolkit, and nature. We can't have Ugandan get together without having my toolkit here on the list. But thank you all for sharing. And so that's exactly what we're going to talk about, like the different parts of us and how we navigate those two worlds. I think as first generation Ugandan American, there's a lot of things that I know growing up, you know, with the expectations of being, a Ugandan child at home and then going into college and being surrounded by people that, are different nationalities. I did feel like I went through a journey of like trying to hide myself, hide parts of myself in different areas that I went into. And it does take a toll on your mental health. And so in my role as a youth and parenting coach, I've worked with youth as well as like coaching youth in terms of career and what they want to do in life. I would say mostly seniors and college students, and then coaching parents on how they deepen connection with their children, because even teens and young adults are most of the parents that I have. They have teens and young adults, and so there's a lot that's there that expectations are being navigated and things like that. So we're going to touch on this and how it impacts mental health. All right, let me All right. How many of you know what code switching is?
Yeah.
Can anyone tell me what code switching? You could either type in the chat or say it on the mic.
Audrey came back? Mm-hmm. Was that? Was that a business meeting? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so code switching is when people kind of go back and forth in between being one way in one environment, being one way in another environment. And so being so for example, the way I used to operate was there was the work Asumini and then there was the home Asumini. So I felt like I had to be a certain way in the corporate offices and that space to fit in. And then at home, like basically hiding parts of myself. How many of you experience that? It feels like I don't know if there's more parents than youth on the call, but would love to hear if any of you experienced that before. This is meant to be engaging, so I hope that, could have some participation because I tend to like to lecture. But if you've ever walked into a room and immediately calculated how much of me is safe to bring in here, Then the academic side can be you soften parts of you that feel too Black or too cultural. So one example I have is when I went to college, even though my name was pronounced Asamini, I would introduce myself as Asmeen. And I would say, hey, my name is spelled Asmeen. And I felt like it was easier for people to pronounce. So I sort of shifted my name in a way. And that's an example of code switching. I was more or less worried about people feeling comfortable saying my name, and so I switched it how I said, it's spelled that way, Asumini, but pronounced this way, just to make it easier for other people. And then in community, you hide parts of you that feel too mainstream or too Western. So in Ugandan communities sometimes, or even in other communities, you might feel like, okay, I can't be too American, right? And that was me. I'll say for myself, like growing up sometimes, I felt like I couldn't be too American, that I had to be more Ugandan in certain spaces. And at home, you perform whichever version keeps the peace because, with parents, sometimes most times, children want to please their parents. So performing whichever version can help keep the peace is something that could happen. And at the end of the day, it's exhausting to keep doing that. And it affects you mentally, right? When you're code switching back and forth, being one way, this place, one way, this other place. And from that effort of managing yourself in every room, it can be very exhausting. And so what actually is happening is there's fear. So when you start to do things like code switching, like in the example I gave, where, I changed the pronunciation of my name, a lot of it had to do with fear. So fear was in my thinking about like what will other people think? What will they say? How will they accept me? Will I belong? Will I be accepted in certain circles? So if you believe a room won't accept you, you actually tend to shrink and make yourself smaller than who you really are. And the shrinking creates the exact disconnect between the other people in the room that maybe you feared. So all of it starts with fearful thinking and shrinking yourself potentially, and you're basically carrying a weight that you can't really control. So at the heart of this, we see here is anxiety. So this is what's actually happening, right? I'll give like maybe a practical example is when I started working at Deloitte Consulting. I was yeah, I was new to the consulting world, and they had given me a role where I was going to be managing a team of 6 people. And I was like so nervous because I was like, what are they going to think? This Muslim Black woman coming in to manage a predominantly white team. And so I was so scared about like, what are they going to say? What are they going to think? What are they going to do? That a lot of the times I would hide part of myself, right? I would want to appear as the authority on the team, the manager of the team. And so I wouldn't necessarily share as much as I'm sharing with you today about myself. I wouldn't share that with my team members because I was afraid they wouldn't accept me. And at the heart of that, there was a lot of anxiety because I was like, what are they going to think constantly each day? Worried about if I make a mistake, they're going to correlate it to me being Black. If I do something wrong, they're going to say, oh, Muslims, they don't know what they're doing. If I get something wrong in front of the client, they're going to be like, oh, women, what can they do? So there was a lot of thinking. And so there's a lot of anxiety that's at the heart of that. Let me know if that's something that resonates. I think someone put, I remember code switching in high school. Yes, thank you for sharing that because it's something that's common that comes up a lot. And I know me and my friends, we talk about it a lot. And even amongst the youth that I'm coaching, this comes up a lot. Being afraid to show your true self in certain spaces because you want to be accepted. And there's a lot of anxiety that can carry in that leading to mental health. So once you have that fear of like, am I going to belong in this space? Then a lot of the times you end up performing. So if I go back to the Deloitte example, because I was nervous about what people would think about me making a mistake, I actually would have perfectionist tendencies where I'm looking at things over and over again. I'm making things perfect. There was a lot of burnout. I was working a lot of hours that, yes, in consulting, you work a lot of hours, but I would argue that some of the hours that I ended up working was burning myself out because it had to be perfect, because I had this fear. I don't want them to talk about me, about who I am as a Black woman who's Muslim, that I don't know what I'm doing. And so there was a lot of me trying to prove myself to people. So this is the weight that you can feel belonging in multiple worlds where, you're a lot of us are the minority in where we work, where we go to school. And so wanting to prove ourselves is essentially tying our value to external acceptance because you haven't built that internal self-worth within yourself. And this is something that I struggled with for a long time until I ended up, again, self-improvement, like working on myself, hiring coaches, doing those different things to do the work on myself, and realizing that my worth doesn't come from acceptance from other people. It comes from God, right? Like we're worthy because God says so. That's ultimately what it is. And coming to that was not easy, and I think it still isn't. There's a lot of spaces when you go to new positions, you feel like an imposter. So there's a quiet cost of performance. So when you are constantly trying to prove yourself to others because you feel like you don't belong, you can burn out. Mentally, it can be exhausting. Burnout can, I've seen people that I've worked with, can lead to depression, can lead to, different things like just feeling like you're not worthy enough. So you actually give up and you might spiral downwards. And so it's really important to be aware that we're not meant to prove ourselves really to others. Then there's a part of this where the parent, and speaking as a parent myself, like we need to understand what our kids are going through, right? There's different versions of them that they feel like they have to be in certain spaces. Like I have to be not too Ugandan here, but I'm going to be more Ugandan here, or I want to be more American here to fit in here. And so they're, I think our youth are navigating the different worlds and where they fit in. And so as parents, being curious about what it is going with them, um, what it is that's going on with them to be able to understand. um I work with a lot of parents who are just like, I wish that my child would, just accept our culture and do things that way, or I grew up doing things this way, why don't they just get that they need to do it this way? And a lot of that is them really coming into who they are. And so being not saying not have expectations for your children, but being aware of the struggles that they're going through and being more empathetic and more compassionate about asking more questions, about meeting them where they are. How are you feeling about this? How are you feeling at high school? Like, do you feel like you fit? Do you feel like you belong? What struggles are you having? And then even in that transition to college or even the working world, it doesn't end, right? So I think it's important for parents to really see their children and get curious and ask questions about that. So here's some like brief steps, right? And I'm going to come to like an engagement point where I would love you guys to participate. But what's important, step one is to uncover your own voice, right? When you're navigating these two worlds, you can't know who you are to the world until you know who you are to yourself. So number one, working with students and working with students on their voice. What do I actually believe when no one is watching? What do I genuinely value when approval isn't on the table? And what does this discomfort tell me I need right now? The biggest thing is understanding like who you are, what's your purpose. And this is a lot of the work that I do in my business to kind of uncover that and what this discomfort is telling right now. So I want you to take a few minutes. Think about a time you felt you didn't belong in a room. I'd love to hear,
I'd love to.
what did you actually need in that moment? If everyone could just take a few minutes and I would love to hear either in the chat or we can have one volunteer come on the mic to just think of a time you felt like you didn't belong, where you were, you had this anxiety, you were worried about whether you're going to fit in. It was affecting you mentally. Perhaps maybe it didn't get to the point where it was so burdensome, but getting there. And what did you actually need in that moment? So we'll take a few minutes and then I'll ask people to share. You can share in the chat as you think of this, and then hopefully we can get one person on the mic.
I would like to share.
Okay, go ahead, Rita.
I'd like to share. I think what I remember mostly is during my high school for sure. Um, I I felt that I needed to be to fit in, to fit
Mm-hmm.
in a group of uh, students that are cool, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I need to have this how do you call it? Like when you have that you want to appear brave, but you're not really brave.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just like
Yeah.
yeah, and you're just like oh yeah, it's like you don't care. Yeah,
Mhm.
and that I remember doing that, and that's because I just felt that that's the only way to maybe it's just the way to survive.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
to survive. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Rita. That's
Mm.
so common to so many of us. I can think of high school too and wanting to fit in a certain crowd. And I can think of one friend in particular that my mom was like, no, 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 that Maxine, stay away from her. But then I was so like, I need to fit in with her. And then realizing later that that's maybe some of those peers were not the best for you, right? But wanting so much to fit in that, and what did you said you needed in the moment was to feel what? Like you wanted to fit in, but what did you, is there anything else that you needed in that moment?
I needed to be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Be relevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, also to it was sort of a defense mechanism, I think,
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
be able not to. If you appear courageous and bold, nobody's going to bully you.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
putting on that front that I am bad,
I'm bad. Nobody can mess with me. Yes. You were like trying to fit in the group that was courageous, that was nobody really messed with. And so I love what you said about you wanted to feel relevant. It's often like I know that that is something that I felt as well, and not wanting to feel rejection, not wanting to feel rejected from people, right? Because all of us want some level of acceptance. So that can motivate us to sometimes uh that feeling of, oh, I don't want to be rejected, I want to feel relevant. Again, that's all tied to our worth. What are we associating our worth with? Like with the acceptance of other people. And that's usually what for me could lead to like that burnout or that spiraling to perform to be a certain way so people will like me, and mentally it can definitely take a toll. So thank you, Rita, for sharing. Anyone else want to share? So the one thing that the first step was like, uncovering your own voice, really understanding what you need, what's at the core. The next step could be anchoring in your heritage, your core, your purpose, like who you are, who you really are. Like for me, my anchor has definitely been my faith, and that sort of guides me in everything. In addition to like, knowing from my parents I'm a Muganda, right? Like that's at the core. of me as well. So before everyone else tries to define you, your legacy was actually already written. You were given a specific family, a specific generation, a rich cultural history, and none of it is a mistake, right? And so being able to anchor in knowing who you are. And some for some that doesn't look like for me, I had to learn later in life that I'm not purely 100% a Muganda. I'm Ugandan American. I'm always saying that to people because I'm a blend, right? But I had to like become comfortable with that's who I am. And I have this faith and that's who I am. And anchoring in that and being confident in that is really important. And it comes with time. So being gentle with yourself all the way through. The one thing I wanted to point out too is like there's I kept talking about performance, right? So this thing of trying to prove yourself to others because you're split in both worlds. Some of these things could look like explaining yourself over and over again, apologizing for your personal boundaries. So I used to, for me, like in the Deloitte world, there was a lot of like, happy hours and things like that that started to get in the way. As I became closer to senior manager, I was getting invited to places that I didn't feel comfortable. And I found myself apologizing all the time for it until one day I was like, no, I'm not apologizing for who I am. And I basically said I can't go to these type of events. And my manager actually was like, oh, let's just go bowling. Instead of the bar, let's do this. Instead of this, let's do this so that we could include Asamini and everyone. And so it's important that um, when you start over explaining yourself and I'm going to perform just to get to a certain level and ignore your boundaries, ignore your core, that can also take a toll on you because then you start to feel like, who am I? That's what I started to feel like because I started to say yes to so many things and then forgot about the things that really were no for me. And so being aware of your boundaries is important. So you're not performing to the point of not being true to who you are. So declining what doesn't serve you without apologizing for it. And people started to understand what things I was willing to do and what I wasn't. So performance could be, in some cases, like in the corporate world, locks, dreadlocks, and natural hair, big afros, especially at certain companies, were not looked good upon, right? So some people would choose to say, I'm not gonna, do the natural hair. I'm not gonna do the locks because it'll make other people uncomfortable. And yes, you can straighten your hair and make your way up, but then is that being true to you? Right? So being aware of at what cost, right? At what cost am I going to just shut down what part of me makes sense? So bringing your authentic self into the professional and academic spaces without minimizing yourself is so important. um, that interaction, calculating every response to ensure you sound proper enough or black enough, or in some cases, you don't sound too black, depending on the space that you're in. I remember for a long time in the corporate world, we did these icebreakers, right? Where we introduced ourselves, and I never wanted to say I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, because that was like the inner city, mostly black people. People knew that it wasn't a good area. And then I remember being like, why am I hiding this about myself? Like, yes, I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and that's part of my culture. Like, that's part of me. That's where I grew up for 8 years, 10 years of my life. And hiding it was sort of this way of, I want to feel like I am, that I can be accepted in some of these white circles where they're doing boating and doing all of these things and speaking from your actual expertise and your lived experience, because this is who you are, is more presence rather than performing for others. So there was a comment in the chat. I remember
Yeah, I wanted to read it for you.
go ahead.
That is Mary. Mary, thank
Mm-hmm.
you for
Oh,
responding.
okay.
She said, I remember the culture shock transitioning from Lake Victoria School in Uganda to an
Mm-hmm.
elementary school in Silver Spring, Maryland, and dumbing down myself because I didn't want to be associated with nerds.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mary, for sharing that. That's a really great example too, because a lot of I hear my my kids saying stuff like that. Like, I don't want to appear too smart, mommy, in certain classes because it might be looked a certain way in certain circles. So this idea of dumbing yourself down is not being authentic. It's like you're performing to be something that you're not versus being present and showing who you really are.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry. It's Lucy, not Mary. My apologies. My apologies, Fidelia. So sorry.
so showing up as yourself is so important. Like there was a point after a while where I just got rid of this separate thing of like work Asamini, home Asamini. And I was like, no, I'm combining myself and I'm me, I'm Asamini. And so that included being able to set boundaries and being like, okay, um, being able to be okay with asserting like I'm not really into this because this is not part of who I am or this goes against who I am. Um, for me in the work environment too, there's certain environments where I felt like I was always working to prove myself to get to a certain level. And what ended up changing was instead of doing to perform and being more present, I said, here are my boundaries. Like I have two girls at the time who were like, preteen, even younger, navigating the work-life balance. I was like, I can't, on this at this specific time each day, I have to go pick them up. Is it okay if I am on the phone, dialed into a meeting, but I'm not like on video? And to my surprise, when I started asserting those things, people were flexible, they were open, right? And then if they're not, then it gives you an inkling to like what is the type of culture of the place that I'm working or where I'm at, and does it fit who I am? So then you start to decide, okay, do I want to be in this environment if it goes against some of my non-negotiables or compromises my identity? Um, Now I correct when people mispronounce my name without making a joke,
Mhm.
without giving a shortcut and saying, oh, my name is pronounced Asmi. No, my name is Asamini. Let me spell it out for you. So being clear about those type of things. Um, there also is just, just taking time off for me, like certain religious holidays and being clear about I won't be able to work on this. And some of these things too, the boundaries, I did say them, like I would make indications of it in the interview, asking questions about the culture of the company to make sure that it's aligned. And all of this equates to taking up space, to you being authentic to who you are. And it's not about performance, it's now about being present, right? And it just requires you to make that decision. So now I want you I'd love to hear from others. Thank you to Fidelia and Rita for participating. The non-negotiable. So I want you to choose one thing you will never compromise, not a goal, like one thing you will not move, no matter what in the room, no matter the cost, not because you explained it, not because you justified it, right? Write it down, and I'd love to hear from that. If you guys could type in the chat, anybody want to come on video as well?
Mostly where I come from, like Uganda.
Uh-huh.
So I would not move there because I like telling people like, "Are you here?" I said, "No, I'm from Uganda," because I know where I come from, and
Yeah.
that's grateful to me as a person.
Yes.
And also like the culture, the language, also learn new things about your country. Because mostly like I know see people who are black, they don't know where they come from. They say, I say, where are you from? Oh, I'm from New York. Oh, I'm from
Hmm.
New York. Like I say, okay, it's like most I get tired of people say, oh, do you know we are from New York, we don't do this and that. And sometimes I say, you don't need to tell me you're from New York because sometimes I get tired of that.
Okay. I love that, Noel. So you're like, I'm not compromising. I'm from Uganda. When the people say where I'm from Uganda. I love that. So, because a lot of people, I had someone actually tell me, "Do you have a more American name?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, like Asians, some of them, they have American names." And I was like, I don't have an American name. My name is Asumini. You want me to write it out phonetically? Because people will push you on that. They're like, "Oh, you're from Uganda? Okay, you sure, Noel? Is there anything else?" Like people, it's surprising what people will say, but I love that you're holding true to, "I'm from Uganda." Thank you for sharing that. And I see Joseph said culture, not compromising on that. My culture, Fidelia says, and yes, I correct people when they mispronounce my last name. Love that. And Sanyu says, family first. Yes, love that. All very important. And Annette says, my food. Yes. And BK says heritage. So a lot of people are talking about, culture and Uganda. Noel saying like you where I'm from is Uganda, and family first. These are all things that people can push you on, in different circles that you go into. So it's good to know that this is a non-negotiable. So that when you go into different spaces and you have that tendency to want to code switch, you're not. You're holding fast to who you are. Um, and it prevents this whole performance, overperforming just to prove yourself to other people. um, so if you are, and it sounded like in the beginning, not a lot of people said, yes, yes, I code switch. And so I don't know if there are people that are, hearing this and saying, yes, they do. But I know when Rita gave her example, the one thing to remember is that to be patient with yourself. Also, this is something that happens over time. Like for me, I guess it took me probably 15 years to really come to like, I'm going to show up myself no matter what space I'm in. And I guess for parents in the room to know that our kids, they're going to have their own journey as well. And they may switch and say, I'm not Ugandan today, I am Ugandan tomorrow, or, they might not acknowledge a part of themselves, but to be there with them and, really hold their hand to like support them through it and ask questions and be there with them and not like, forcefully, Uri Muganda. No, like to be like with them to understand what their struggles are. And it happens over time.
I was gonna, I was gonna ask
Yeah.
Asumi,
Mhm.
um, if you
If you
see
see
your
your
child
child
sounding
sounding
different
different
when
when
they're
they're
with
with
their
their
friends
friends
Mhm.
and then
and then
sounding
sounding
different
different
at
at
home.
home,
So
how
how do
how do
you
you um,
um, approach
approach
that,
that,
you
you
know,
know,
Yeah.
without
without
hurting
hurting
their
their
feelings?
feelings?
Mhm. So I think, and this is a perfect question because it segues into the next point of like, sometimes we as parents have to be aware of our emotions that are coming up when that comes up. So you hear your child sounding different, making sure that you check in with yourself. Like for me, when I see my child do something that I don't expect, I might get fear. I might get worried. Like, what does this mean? Like, are they changing who they are? What are they going to be? And so checking in with yourself and saying, pause, like, okay, I'm feeling fear right now. Maybe now is not the time to like talk to her about it, but I'm going to come back and talk to her when I'm calmer and deal with my fear. Because a lot of the parents that I work with, they have a lot of fear of the future of like what their kids are going to turn out as. So when they hear something like that, for example, their child talking differently, then they automatically respond with, "Why would you talk like that? Why are you talking like that? I'm
Hmm.
taught you to talk like that." And so it's from a place of like fear or
Hmm.
frustration. So pause, exit the room, do what you have to do to manage your own emotions because you need to be emotionally regulated before you approach that child, right? And when you're calm, that's the moment you sit down and you get curious and you're like, I noticed that you had that, you were talking like that. What made you talk like that? Like asking open-ended questions. I think it's very different from how I've heard you talk in other settings. And I'm just curious as to what is what makes you do that, or what's the reason that you're talking differently? And hearing them out, right? Is there something about the friends that you are with that they all sort of talk like that? So because a lot of the times this is about them fitting in, right? And just going from there with curiosity rather than responding from panic, because the energy, and I think kids feel the energy when you respond from panic. Then it goes into lecture mode, then it goes into criticism, and then they shut you out. So let me know if that was helpful, Rita.
Yeah, that's helpful. That's helpful
Okay.
for sure. And
So,
probably, and I'm thinking that also maybe telling them about, when I was a teenager, how I
mhm,
try to fit in as well. Something I don't know, maybe explaining um my experiences. I think I've never thought about that, but when you're talking, I sort of um my mind went that way as well.
mhm,
Um, to show that I was also a teenager one time.
mhm.
I wasn't born mommy.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so exactly. So, and then I would say the timing is important for when you give your example, because sometimes, if, and you can use your intuition, but sometimes giving your example and your story a little too soon can feel like, oh, you're just telling me about like what you did is not necessarily what I'm going through, right? So I think the initial stage is like exploring it with open conversation where you're doing most of the listening rather than the talking. You could ask questions like, you know, so if you were to say to her, like, what makes you change your voice like that? And then she says, well, I just want to fit in with my friends, and I just want to not feel so different. What does fitting in mean to you? Like starting to hear how your child thinks. What does it mean to fit in? Um, what are times when you felt like you didn't fit in? Like just to get to know how they're thinking about things and get to know what they're going through. It takes a lot of like being curious rather than, and I'm not saying don't use your example, but I'm saying in that initial conversation, it's probably more of like dialogue and listening.
Okay. That makes sense.
Mhm.
Thank you.
The golden question, ask what is it like for you being in you in your world right now, and then just listen. You don't have the answer, of course, to everything. We as parents, we I know I don't have the answer to everything. And so it's about them having the safety to listen. Damali says, my kids hate when I share my experiences as they say I'm making it about myself. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So depending, some children get really turned off with like wanting to hear that. So it's really important to lead with the curiosity. And use the your intuition of like, okay, when does it make sense? So for example, with my girls, like I have something called like Mommy Chronicles, like some series. I was like, I have Mommy Chronicles number 566. It was from when they were younger too. And they're like, oh, what's that story? It usually comes at a point when it's lighthearted, we're like, in the car, or we're like somewhere and it's not like heavy, and it's some story about something. Like I think I talked to them about the pressure I had in high school, and where I plagiarized actually in high school, and I got on disciplinary probation because I was worried about getting a C. And it taught me a lot because I didn't get into a lot of colleges, and Carnegie Mellon accepted me contingent upon getting into a program. And I remember talking to them about that at a time when we were talking about how it can look like on paper everyone has everything perfect, right? Especially in this generation. Everyone's so set on 4.0. I have students that are like, I'm getting a 4.5, but I need to get a 4.7, and it's all about like the perfection, but you don't know what journey people have been through. And for me, God takes us on a journey so that we can learn from our mistakes and be accountable. Because let me tell you, because of what happened to me in high school, it forced me to buckle down even more in college to a level that I don't know if I would have if it didn't happen to me. And so that story I remember came out of like randomly, like just talking about appearances and like, oh, everyone seems to be perfect and going to this Ivy League school and going to that. And then I was like, you never know what the journey can happen. So anyway, I digress. So like the next thing is to know that you're the bridge. The world is never going to fully agree on who you should be. So it's not about what they think of who you should be. Success, you define your success, right? And it's about knowing who you are and holding true to that. Um, so it's not about choosing between like, okay, I'm Ugandan versus American, or, the identities that you're holding true. The work is becoming a person grounded enough so that you can show up authentically as who you are. And so it's really important to know that. So, I mean, as most of you, I said earlier, I am a youth and parenting coach, so I do 60-minute calls for anyone who'd be interested. But I wanted to basically share this talk to talk about navigating the two cultures, navigating two worlds, how it can lead to performance, how it can lead to really burnout. I used to be really burnt out in the corporate world. And now I feel like because I've become more in tune with who I am and what my boundaries are, that I tend to hold those limits. So that's really all I had. And I'm open to any questions we can do in Q&A. Anything related to.
Assuming,
Mhm.
did
Yeah.
you plan to share the questions that the kids had at the Dev Ambassadors
Oh, you wanted me to do that?
that are related to what you share?
Yes. So hold on. Let me pull up.
In the meantime, does anybody have anything, any question or any experience to share as Asumini looks for?
Yeah, for me, I just have a small experience. So as
Hmm,
she shared, like, for example, when talking about like when the children talk the way they talk, and
hmm.
then you ask them like, why are you talking like that? For me, it was a reverse. And I think maybe I was maybe like on a work meeting, and then like after the work meeting, I was working at home, and my child asked me, "Mommy, why do you talk to your work people differently when you're talking? You're Muganda."
Oh, Lord.
Then she reminded me like, what happened to your Ugandan accent? So
That
when she
is
said that,
funny.
like, I just felt like, okay. She down who reminded me like, what are you up to here?
Okay. Wow.
So,
Our kids could
Yeah.
always remind us.
Yes, they're observant. They're
So I
observant.
guess one of the questions or some of the questions that were common that students asked or youth asked at the Dave and Buster's were, how do I, how can I get my parents to understand that um, chores was a big thing, right? Like with being in school and having to navigate the expectations at home, how can I really get my parents to like understand that they want me to be successful in school, but then also be sort of like this Ugandan child doing all of the things at home, the chores at home. Like how can we balance that with our parents? And I feel like this kind of touches on like expectations, um,
Mhm.
culturally, because I know in that discussion at Dave and Buster's, a lot of the parents were like, well, some of these things at back in Uganda, we had to do everything manually. We had to wash our clothes by hands. We don't have like the washing machine like you guys do. So some of those things parents are like, it should just be easy for them. It's okay. And I would probably my thoughts on this are that again, it comes down to like really listening to your children. Where like this generation, there's so much more pressure than I remember ever.
Very sensitive.
We also had like I remember getting a B was okay. Like when I grew up and went to school. Now, the students that I work with, um, getting a B is like the worst thing that could ever happen. There's a lot of pressure, right? And it's very much more competitive now in getting into colleges and things like that. So I think it is important for parents to have some level of understanding and not just sort of talk about, well, this is how I did it back home growing up, but more of like try to really what Rita, what we talked about earlier when you brought up that question is like bring up the conversation with them and get curious about their perspective rather than making assumptions that they should automatically know how to do something. But having the conversation to see, like, could you put up a timetable together on chores and what's reasonable based on their workload of the activities in addition to the schoolwork? Because a lot of the students have these activities that they're going to as well. And maybe uh doing the chores as you want them exactly the way that you want them is not feasible. So I would say that's part of like having the conversation.
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Damali.
Hi, Damali.
Uh, and in my family, I have, well, I have two teenage daughters,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I go through a lot of reflection time about conversations that have gone the wrong way, about, meaning maybe I didn't handle a conversation right, maybe it was the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes maybe I could be driving one to school and maybe I said the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I could have waited for that lighter moment, like you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Even literally right now, I think I just made the same mistake. And it usually comes from a pressure of wanting to do things within a certain timeline and maybe like where the child has different priorities from the ones we have for them,
Yeah.
and because we're seeing things from a different perspective than the one they have.
Mm-hmm.
Um so it's very very challenging, and I guess I am accepting of the fact that the challenges are going to be every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've started lately is every weekend, mostly Sundays, we have a time where we ask them what's on their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be anything, like maybe we're talking about schools for my senior, or we could be talking about, we ask them, what's on your mind? What can we do to help? What do you want? What can we do to help? Normally we're asking, some of them sometimes will hold back, but then there'll be one who'll tell you, you know what? I need new pants. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
Whatever is on their mind, they'll tell you. And then um maybe if, let's say we went to church and the message, especially this Sunday, was about things that don't go the way we plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been really insisting on going to church lately because of these exact, like I'm, like we told them that we're not perfect. I'm not a perfect parent, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm also learning through mistakes. We've told them that, like I told my oldest child, I'm learning to be a parent from you being my very first child.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've made mistakes, I want to do right. I want to get it right. And maybe, it's like bearing your soul. It's like it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot. But but
Yeah.
we've been having those candid conversations. Or
Yeah.
because the child could say, you know what, when I was younger, you weren't a listener, you didn't do this. We're like, okay, you know what? We've talked about that. We want to do better. We want to do this. And like I said, they don't like when we compare too much of the experiences we went through. And again, maybe it's the timing of those stories.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot, but I pray about it every day. But going to church with them has
Mm-hmm.
really been helpful because sometimes And I wish, yeah, actually this Sunday they have confirmation and where people their age are going to speak in front of everyone of the congregation. And I'm like, I
Mhm.
need to take the kids to church with me only because I want them to hear from people their own age. And I
Mhm.
also want them to hear that whatever I'm telling them from someone else's mouth, because sometimes it means a lot. It could be life changing.
Yeah.
Whether you get back home and decompose that conversation, like, hey, what did you learn from today's sermon? We go around asking everyone, what do you feel you learned from what the man said, the pastor, when he talked about difficulty in life and how sometimes we may want maybe a specific school and we don't get it, or maybe we want a job and we
Mhm.
don't get it. What did you learn? And so my son said recently, I've learned that I have to keep on, I have to get up and keep trying again and again. So
Oh,
it makes me feel good because now we're
yeah.
we're not putting that in their mind. That's
Yeah.
something we're saying, listen, when we go to church, pay attention because there's something that could change your life. And I'm
Yeah.
not preaching, I'm just saying it is not easy to parent alone.
Mhm.
So I'm trying so hard to use every resource, including the Sundays where we pull out the what's it called, that I think Rita has seen that in my house, a whiteboard, a dry erase board where we write down things that are on their mind and how we can help them work through those things with
Back.
solutions. So that's all I wanted to share.
Oh,
That
thank
was
you so
the
much, Damali, for
Thank
sharing that.
you.
I
Yeah.
love, and the fact, do you find that your kids are very open with you and share a lot of things?
Right now, yes, the Sunday
Yeah.
talk has helped.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we're busy, sometimes, when, because during the week we don't eat together, we're eating at random times. The kids come home, they eat whatever is in the fridge. I come
Yeah.
home tired. So the weekend is very, very important for us to have. It's really like it's like, what do you call it? We're making it mandatory to have at least 2 meals together, if
Yeah.
possible, and then we ask what's on their mind, or maybe we notice something new, or maybe we find a child is struggling, so we'll bring up a topic and then we'll have everyone contribute in ways that we can maybe help that person make a decision. Could be we were trying to help my senior choose a college program, and it's funny, we went through it, and she felt at peace. Even though the
Okay.
others are younger, it felt
Yeah.
like we were all kind of chiming in. But I
Yeah.
know every day I recognize the difficulty. I stress out about it. I pray about it. Serious. Sometimes I get on my knees because it is not easy. And I've been trying to tell them that it's like I'm trying. I'm not trying to be like I'm breaking down here. I'm just trying to say that I
Yeah. No,
am
no, no.
very much aware that it is difficult, but I
Yeah.
want to do right. I always say I want to do better. And
Yeah.
that's all I wanted to share. So
Thank you so much for sharing. That was really beautiful and very helpful because, and I feel like we need to have more conversations like these together as parents, like to share these type of things because some of us may be going through the same challenges, right? We are probably going through the same challenges. And so what I see you, Damali, have done a wonderful job of is creating a safe space for your kids, right? To share and to really like it takes a village too. So sometimes we as parents think we have to do it, mom and dad need to teach them everything, but the fact that they're learning from the church and the sermon and like you applying it at home and talking about it shows a lot too as well. So and prayer is so important. Like my mom's side of the family is Catholic and my dad's side is Muslim. So I would say that I have a lot of prayer warriors in my family. So praying is the one thing that can like really change a lot for our kids as well. So we have to keep praying for them every day. But thank you so much. That was helpful.
thank you for listening. Thank you.
Hmm.
Hey, can I say something? Thank you, Damali, for sharing and really
Thank you.
like encouraged all of us. So to add on to that, one thing which we try to do is like we go to church too. We just get our children involved in church. Like they're ushering, they're singing the choir. Even for the one who's in college, like that weekend or the 2 weeks is back for is it like the winter break? Like at least as soon as he gets here, like, hey, you be singing, like I get him onto the roster. So like they're much visible whereby it's like, hey, more people are having eyes on you guys. So not like I'd say it directly, but at
Hmm.
least like I know like they know like more people are watching them. So even though like maybe ushering, sing or doing something whereby they get involved in that kind of community service, it really also helps them a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Those are all really good points. Um, and actually, maybe I'll ask Damali another question is like, maybe this would be beneficial too to share with the group is like, some parents, they have a different method of like encouraging faith, right? And so how do you make sure that you don't, uh, like, it sounds like your kids don't feel forced.
Um, yes. So recently, and the reason why, like I said, there have been times when I've been on the road with my oldest because she's always she plays basketball. So I felt like being away with sports, we were kind of away, from church because many of the games are on Sundays. And then it's funny, as I was away, my husband was at home, was trying his best to make sure that the others at home don't. Oh, Mama and Kayla are not home. We're going to take a break. We're going to sleep in. No, he was also trying very hard to make sure that he shows up at church, right? So
Mhm.
and then I realized recently as I talked to my middle child, she said, I sometimes don't understand faith. And listen, this is a child we've been going to church with. She said, I don't. Now, of course, I went into panic. I was like, oh my God,
Mhm.
society is influencing her, the world is influenced. That's the first thing in my mind. I was like, what do you
Mhm.
mean? She says, I don't understand. And when I asked more, it's because she said a friend of hers is not forgiving. Like, she said that my friend is a Christian
Mhm.
but is not forgiving, or this other person is not living true to they're not being true to themselves, they're living a fake life. And so I had to ask questions, and then I realized in her young mind, maybe she's expecting perfection from, let's say, a person of faith or a person who's supposed to be of a certain faith. Or
Mhm.
maybe she sees, you remember during Ramadan, there's certain expectations for
Mhm.
a Muslim person during the month of Ramadan, and one of her friends wasn't acting within what my daughter perceived, and so she said something to her friend, then the friend is not her friend anymore. And so I was like, Robin, I think there are times when you should just maybe hold back on whatever you need to say. But she
Yeah.
always feels that sometimes she has to correct what she sees. I said sometimes it might be the wrong time for you. And then she's heard that I've lost my friend because I told them XYZ, and then they just got upset, or they're
Mhm.
unforgiving. So I don't understand faith. I don't understand religion sometimes. And then I'm like, gosh, I have to take this child to church. I have to go ask someone to pray. I think I got scared, right? But
Yeah.
then I realized, so all this time I'm suffering mentally, thinking that, oh my God, that means she doesn't like God, she doesn't like, but that's really, it's because of the things that were happening around her that made her
Around.
question that. And even the wars, the wars that are happening out there, people
Yeah.
dying.
Mhm.
And remember what happened in Palestine. Remember what's happening right now with
Yeah.
Iran.
Right.
So she
Yeah.
was like, but people are dying. And then, that's a valid thought. It's valid because people are truly dying. And then the immigration issues, like, it's like, why, how can we make other humans suffer? I don't understand faith. I don't understand why God lets people suffer. Do you see
Mhm.
that? Why does God make people fail? Why does God let people die? So you see how questions come from that area. Then
Right.
then recently, guess what she said? I need a Bible. She said that. I was like, "Ooh, she had a Bible, but it was a children, like younger version." But
Okay.
she suddenly came up to us and said, I need a Bible. And then guess what? Of course, we slacked. We didn't buy the Bible right away. And then one time we're having dinner, she said, I asked for a Bible, but no one bought me a
No one
Bible.
gave you the Bible.
Then somehow I was very happy. I was like, oh my God, she's really serious. She really needs a Bible. And again, I think I might have told my sister, no, that my child is asking for a Bible. I better look for a good Bible that will help her understand and maybe reflect. And so finally, we're like, we better buy this Bible. We did buy a good Bible for her. But
Mhm.
then in my mind, I think she's trying to come to what an understanding of what faith. I think she wants to grow in her faith, but in her own way. And
Yeah.
I don't want to stuff it down her, what do you call it? I don't want
Stuff it
to
down her
force
throat.
it on her.
Yeah.
That's why when we finish with church, we usually ask what they feel the message was all about. We don't correct them because whatever they tell us, that's what they took from it. We share, all of us, but she has shared some great insight from what she from a message in church. So then that makes me feel like we're in a good place, regardless of the
Mhm.
doubt in her. I think she'll arrive at a good place in her own time. You understand?
Mhm.
Because if I
I
force it,
understand.
then it's like we're arguing. We end up actually arguing, and I don't want to do that. I stopped that. I don't want to do that anymore.
So you're
So
giving her a place to ask questions, because if they don't
yeah,
ask it with you, then they'll ask it somewhere else, right? And maybe
yeah,
the
yeah. So
next
that
step
so
might
she
happen.
got her Bible, and
Mhm.
to me that's like a baby step. Even though she grew up in the church, but the fact that now she was questioning faith and how all of us, we're not perfect humans.
No.
We are going to make mistakes, but I think she was expecting us to be, all of us, anyone, let's say she sees a religious person, she's going to expect them to be perfect. If a friend at school does something and then they refuse to forgive, someone's like, but I don't understand, they're Christian, why wouldn't they forgive? So that's the part that I want to show, that where people are not perfect, they'll make mistakes
Right.
over. And then she said, but how come murderers kill and then they ask for forgiveness? Then how do you I'm like, I don't know how to answer that. Like, why do people kill and then ask for forgiveness? So that's where I'm going to leave it up to you parents. It's very difficult trying to
Yeah, to explain. And I think
yeah.
the one thing is, I love what you said about we're not perfect, because I think people associate being like really strong in your faith with perfection. And I know the same thing can happen in Islam, like, which is not true, right?
Yes.
So just making sure, like how you're saying about, you know, it's not about being perfect. Like everyone will see different Muslims practice differently, different Christians practice
Yes.
differently, right?
Yes.
So just I think she's on a journey, and I love that you're giving her the space to ask those questions.
Hmm.
That's what it sounds
Yes.
like. You're doing a really may the Lord reward you for that, because that's
Thank you.
to
And I
say
wanted to
that.
also thank Rita, my sister-in-law. She's been
Oh, okay.
talking to me
That's your sister-in-law?
about therapy.
Yeah.
And I was always afraid of therapy for the children because I was like, oh, I always thought about it wrong. That, oh, they're going to medicate them. I was one of those real Ugandan people who just think
Yeah.
that counseling therapy ends up on the route of like drugging the kids. Does that make sense? So every time we took them for physicals, guess what those doctors at the end told us? You need to get them therapy. I was like, oh my God,
Oh,
every time. And again, I guess it's being in that Ugandan household where
yeah.
sometimes we're expecting perfection. Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. So then I swear for 3 years, the doctor kept telling me, you need to do this because they were testing, what's that? They give them some kind of questionnaire to
Mm-hmm.
complete. And
Yeah.
each time after they fill that questionnaire, they told me, you need to do it and you need to take this seriously. So they'll ask him, did you see a therapist last year? They're like, no. Oh, mom doesn't want to do this. Oh, they would always throw me under the bus. And so, and each time the doctor would send me a list of therapists in our area. And of course, guess what? I never called a single one of them. And then every time they would still like say that we are suffering and you just don't care. Da, da, da. Oh, they said a
So
lot
did
and
you
I felt
finally
guilty.
do that?
Finally, I
Yeah.
finally did it this month. So I'm proud of myself for finally doing the right thing. And yeah, just wanted to say that.
Wonderful. No, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And
Hi.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you something about Ugandan kids and
Mm-hmm.
like us as Ugandans, we have different futures, right? Like we may not have the hair that the Black Americans kids have. And sometimes I feel like you think it's wrong to tell our kids to tell them that you are Ugandan. Your hair is not the same as someone who is mixed with so many,
Mm-hmm.
so many ethnic backgrounds. Like I'm wondering if that's okay to tell them. Like there was a time when my daughter wanted to leave her hair out,
Mm-hmm.
but but she had like really thick hair and it was really kinky. And I didn't know how to tell her that really your hair doesn't look as good as Samari's hair. But I didn't know how to tell her that without hurting her feelings, that you can't really leave your hair out.
Mm-hmm. And
Because
it's normally like someone who has like really straight hair or something.
because her hair was really kaweke kind of like it didn't look really good leaving it out in afro. And she's like, Mom, why don't you want me to leave my hair out? How come other kids get to leave their hair out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I feel like I feel like it's a good thing to tell them, like, you know, we are different. We are Ugandans. We may not have what other kids have. You think that is wrong to tell the kids the truth?
I'm not saying it's wrong. So I just think it's the way you talk to them about it
Yeah.
because hair for a girl means a lot, right?
Right.
Like, so I think um getting to understand like, and the natural look is really in, but I know like especially in my community, I don't know about this community, but like some aunties when they see your hair like natural, they're like,
Yeah.
okay,
Why didn't you comb your hair?
yeah. Why didn't you comb your
Oh,
hair?
cornrow your hair. Or do
Yeah,
something to the hair, right?
and so sometimes hair is like a way to express themselves, right? And
Yeah.
so like I go back to like ask having that dialogue around her hair, like what makes you want to wear it like that, like you know um is she opposed to straightening it and like finding out like what is it about the other way that she doesn't like, right? What is she
She,
trying to express with her
but
hair?
she didn't want the cornrow. She thought she should leave her hair out.
Yeah, and
But then I was so scared that she's going to go to school and they'll make fun of her hair, and then we'll have a problem with that.
but so you see how that's thinking in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're like, she's gonna go to school, they're gonna make fun of her. Like that's scenario, like the worst thing that could happen. She's gonna go to
Yeah.
school, they're gonna
Yeah.
make fun of her.
Mm.
But it hasn't happened yet.
Well,
Yeah, it happened.
because I didn't let it happen. I put the hair in a ponytail.
But do you know what's gonna happen?
What?
Shows like that. You don't know for sure that they're gonna make fun of her. Like
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
what's the worst thing that could happen if you let her try it for one day and just express her
Yeah.
like that?
Can
Maybe
I say
maybe
something as well?
yeah. Maybe I should have.
I'm in school. Nancha, I'm a substitute teacher, and I see kids
Yeah.
wear hair all kinds of ways,
Yeah.
all kinds of ways. So if she wants to leave her hair out, it's okay, I
Mm-hmm.
think. And you could actually, what you could do is tell her to go, that you can take her to a natural hair salon, and then they can, you know, show her how to maintain her hair and
Yeah.
to be able to leave it out, how you can easily leave it out without it tangling so much. So they'll give her pointers and stuff like that. At least now you're doing something that she loves,
Mm-hmm.
about her. You're helping her in her journey, her hair journey.
Right.
So I think, yeah, and now I have the opposite. My daughter doesn't want to leave her hair out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and she has beautiful hair, but she doesn't want to leave it out. So I
Right.
guess that you just need to let other, maybe that when she sees you're taking her to a professional who knows about hair,
Mm-hmm.
then she'll feel like you're supporting her and
Yeah.
hearing it from somebody else, but in a different way.
Yeah, but at that time she didn't even want to go to a professional. She just wanted to do her own thing.
I don't think. Okay.
Yeah. Mm.
But I guess what is the fear? Like what's the worst thing that could happen if she goes to school
Mm.
And they make fun of her. Yeah.
and they make fun of her? Like
They wouldn't. These kids wear hair different ways. There's
I
some
see
that is pinky,
natural
some
hair
is
is like
black,
in
some,
right now.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
Now
lot
it's
of
same, but that was some time
girls are
back.
doing like locks, they're doing sister locks this month,
Right. Yeah.
it's sort of in, and a lot of the times we operate from fear as parents and then we end up controlling some of the things. Like we need to pick our battles, right?
Yeah. True.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
to hold
And
back.
yeah, and then one more question. I have a daughter who is so independent. Like she wants to do everything by herself. Even when it came like to filling out the college, picking the college,
Applications.
or trying to get the applications, or trying to apply for, scholarships and stuff. It's like, Mom, don't worry, I'll do it myself. But then in your mind, you're like, I don't think we're getting enough money like we're supposed to get because you won't let me get involved.
Oh, so she won't let you in the process at all?
Yeah, yeah, like she's like, Mom, I get it. I can do all the everything by myself. We have like the teachers help us at school. B-
Hmm.
But I feel like, is she really doing everything? But she's so independent.
So if so for financial aid and stuff like that, so my
Yeah.
daughter is pretty similar. Like
Yeah.
she was like, "Mommy, mommy, I got it, I got it, I got it," and I would be like, like when it comes to money, I would have a conversation with her and like, when it
Right.
comes to money, you know that with college, if you don't get enough money, you actually won't go, right? Because
Yeah.
like we're paying for the college, right? So
Right.
like when we had that sort of heart to heart, then she started to loosen up a little bit because when they see the consequences of, okay, you're going to do everything yourself, but you're not involved in the financial aid process, then you're going to, it limits your pool of which schools you can end up going to, right? So being able to have that conversation with her about like including you in that process, especially with money. Like for me, that was sort of a non-negotiable because I'm like, if I'm not included in financial aid, like who's gonna pay, the tuition? I don't know if that's part of it, but I think it's not a bad thing that she wanted to do things on her own. Another strategy too with the college process that helped me was having an outside mentor that was also involved, like someone who I met through another entrepreneur that is a colleague of mine, that it took a whole weight off of like, because me and my daughter, we have the same personality. So we were like butting heads a little bit with the process. And so someone else being involved and like being a neutral party to advise with the college process, who's also skilled in the college process, was helpful as well. But I think being aware of like where you do have to play a role is important, and just talking to her about the why you need to be involved in that part of the process, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so people in the comments, I've had my adult children in counseling since they were younger, so now it's normalized. I'm a big believer in counseling, and my kids have gotten counseling. It's just a matter of like choosing people you trust, especially if they're minors, and making sure the values align and everything. I wish I too had, I feel it would have helped them to have a different perspective or different way to process their feelings and frustrations about situations in general. I think that's someone talking about counseling. Um, and we have, it's definitely easier now to embrace and be proud of our natural hair than it was when we were growing up. Yeah, because I got a lot of African booty scratcher, like with the way my hair was natural and stuff like that. So it's it's nice. The natural look is in now. My friend's daughter is exactly like that, stating that she's working with her college career counselor and she's well guided. Yeah, I think we have a lot of children who are like headstrong, right, about things. And I think it's good. And then in a way, it's us, even if like, and I guess I should have said a step further, is if you, even if you state the why and they still say no, at the end of the day, they're gonna have to learn from their mistakes, even though it's like hard on us, not mistakes, but learn from their experience. Maybe everything will go smoothly, maybe something will not go as smoothly, and then they'll learn through what happens, right? Because at this stage with the adult age and like the teenage age, it's all about befriending and guiding, like and influencing. A lot of it moves from I'm going to tell you exactly what to do, and you want them to develop their own critical thinking, problem solving, all of these skills, these life skills that they need as well. So I think that's pretty much
I mean,
everything.
uh, yeah, well, thank you so much. We have one young adult on the as a participant, Noel. Um, I wonder if he has any questions. Noel, do you have any questions or anything to
No, because I know how my mom parenting is a bit hard because I learning from her is like it's like learning from me and my sister. She says parenting you was hard because I made a lot of mistakes. So parenting the other two is different from parenting us because she realized she made too much mistakes. Also, she learned not to make the same mistakes she made on us, not on the youngest one. And also, there's a difference between us and the youngest.
Mhm.
I'm glad that you observed that. And you're
Yeah,
giving her grace, eh?
that's nice.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Noelle, for your comment. I feel like I'm always learning from my mistakes, that I know that I make as well. And it helps us I feel like with what Damali and also, I think it was Sanyu, Damali and Sanyu, they both mentioned like with getting our kids involved in faith and things like that. Like a lot of the mistakes I feel like I've made or am, learning from them has helped me grow in faith and turn more into God of like, please help me with navigating this journey and sending me like the insights I need to go along the way. So I I appreciate what Noelle just mentioned. And it's good that you observe the difference that your parents are making.
I have a question in regards to faith. So, if you have it, like my daughter, is sort of like averse to anything faith-based now.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do, how do we go to church with her.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's a non-negotiable going to church.
Mm-hmm.
We're just like, okay, if you're able to go out on Friday night with friends and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I really think you should come to church. If you can have time to do that, then you should be able to come to church. So that's a non-negotiable. But the fact, but sometimes I'm wondering, maybe uh, things like retreats, things like, you know, um, church related. She's just like, no, no. But then sometimes she just agrees, sometimes because sometimes we're in the car and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm taking her to school. And I'm just like, okay, let's have 5 minutes of listening. There's something called YouVersion, the Bible, and then
Mm-hmm.
she can listen to it. A little. This is just a snippet of something,
Mm-hmm.
and then prayer. Then I'm just like, okay, I'm driving. Can you pray? But it's just like I have to really strategize, and I don't know what's the limit, you know, where is it safe to say, okay, let me leave this to God or to
Mm-hmm.
or you know, sometimes
Yeah,
I question myself in that because I don't want to pressure.
right.
Mhm.
So right now she's accepting to go. I mean, you said she like listened to a clip of the Bible. So is she accepting to go to church on some
She goes
days?
to church. This is like when we're driving. I'm driving out of school. I can ask,
Mm-hmm.
that okay, uh, because we haven't prayed or whatever. We pray in the car.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we have time. We pray in the car to listen to the word and then pray. But then I just don't see that enthusiasm that was there before. And sometimes if we were to not go to church, she'll be fine with it.
Yeah, I would say the one thing too to remember, because I hear this with Muslim parents too, is like they don't want to hear anything about Islam, right? And so one of the things is to really check in with yourself of like, am I having fear when I come to her about church? Like if you're like, I want you to go to church, I want you to read the Bible, I want you to do this, is it like an energy of like, I'm scared of what could happen? Because that's going to be received very differently. And I really loved what Damali said about just open conversation. So I had
Mhm.
one student who was raised by a mother who was strong Christian and a dad who was strong Muslim. And she was like, I don't want to hear anything about religion.
Mm.
And what made her open up was to talk about, well, what do you think? Like when you think of God, what do you think of? And she's like, I think of confusion. And she started to talk about like where that confusion came from. Or like when you think about faith, how does it make you feel? Like those open-ended questions where you take it away from, move a little bit away from, okay, like I want you to look at the Bible or I want you to, go to church today. Like just let's talk about faith overall and how you feel about it. And what do you think about when you think about God? And then you get to start to hear what she's going through. And maybe she if she hears from you, like you being willing to go that way with her, and I know it can be a lot of fear for parents. I know even for me, like to have those conversations, but it really has to be you being calm, like you dealing with your fear on your, and saying, okay, I'm gonna have this with no expectations, like not making assumptions about what could happen, but really truly there to listen to where she's at with religion. I think it's really important. And like I'll tell one last story. Like the way I became a strong Muslim is from two born again Christian women. And I always tell people this story because I'm like, we never know where guidance is going to come from, right? And like, even as a Muslim, I believe in Jesus, as the prophet, and I believe, we believe in the other scriptures. But in California, when I went to Stanford, I met two women who are my friends to this day, and they were just very born again. We were riding around Oakland, California, listening to Mary Mary. They were very nice women. They dressed really conservatively. They wore dresses, and they were just so nice. And like they were like, "Oh, Asumini, like let's take you here. Let's go here." We're both all in grad school together, and it was just nice being around them. And I remember feeling like, "Oh, these women are so kind." And I was like, wow, like they were so inspired with their faith to be so kind. And then at that time, I had sort of strayed away from faith. And I was like, well, what about my faith? And then from there, I was inspired by their character that made me want to look more into my faith. And that's the journey that started me back to getting more involved in my faith. But it was from two born again Christian women. It wasn't from other Muslims. Like, in fact, at that time, I remember other Muslims just I felt like they were harsh. This people that I was with
Okay.
versus, and then from there, I was so inspired. Then I went to Connecticut and I met a beautiful group of Muslim women that were like I was like, I want to wear hijab, but I don't know. And then they were like, oh, sister, just try it on the weekends or just try this. Like they were just people were I just started to meet very kind people.
Mhm.
And yeah, so we never know where faith is going to come from because I never would
Mhm.
have thought that would have happened. And I talk about it with them all the time. I'm like, you guys, I use you as an example all the time because we were listening to Mary Mary. Do you remember that?
Mhm.
Like, yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Mhm.
So we just have those conversations with her openly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we were growing up, this is definitely when we were growing up, it's like we believed because we had to. We didn't question faith. Now the children need to understand so the ask questions and sometimes everything may not make sense, but they have to work their way into actually buying into it. Yes, because I knew I was Muslim. My dad was very much like, he took us to Islamic school, all of those things. But I didn't have it in my heart until I bought into it myself.
Mhm.
Basically, had your own faith journey. That's my prayer for my kids. Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We got
Okay.
to keep praying for them.
Okay. Um, I think we are around when that right now it's 8:30. Eh?
Yeah.
It's a work
8:38.
day. Thank you so much for presenting. Also, I did not introduce the two other people behind this, and Joseph is on here. Joseph Kajuri is so much into community, sharing resources in the community. Joseph, can you introduce yourself? There's something.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Joseph Kajubi. As Auntie Rita introduced me, I am a member of the community from Far, Pennsylvania. Also, I had a little comment about someone who said when we were growing up, we had to we had to do it. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
have we didn't have to have so many explanations. And I think the reason is when we were growing up. Uh, the world was not so crowded as it is right now. So things were very clear when it came to God. The purpose was very clear. But right now, because the world is crowded, we need more clarity. We need somebody behind the scenes to explain why things are the way they are with the
Mhm.
with technology, AI, and everything. So the world is crowded. So kids need more clarity than it was before. Before, a parent would tell you, go to church. You had to go to church because that was the culture. Now that is diluted a little bit.
That is true. Thank you. Thank you for that. And also we have Sanyu. Sanyu is on here too. She's the president of Buganda Academy. And we all try to make sure that we bring these resources to the community. Sanyu, did you want to say something else? Do you
I
want to
just
say
want
something?
to thank the presenters and the presenter, of course, like people around behind it, Mr. Joseph Rita and the dear lady, the presenter. Thank you so much, and everyone for your participation. This has really been so good. It just feels like you've been in Uganda, walking, and you just find some fellow women and talk about things, or even not just women, but people talk about like life issues. So it was really good sharing, and I'm very appreciative. Of course, I've learned a lot. And I'm thinking, okay, now I have to start coming back to that table. So like, hey, what's on your mind?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
that was really a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so
yeah,
much,
and
Zanyu and Joseph and Rita, for organizing this. This feels like it's so important for our community. So I know it takes time to do this out of your busy schedule. So thank you for doing it.
no
Thank you
problem.
too.
Yeah, thank you as well. So we'll be having more sessions this in May and June. We'll be posting them. We'll be posting another one and coming up in I think actually it's on the
Friday,
29th. It's on Friday.
Friday the 22nd
Yeah,
by
yeah,
Dr. Tamar.
yeah. So there's another one coming up, and she's talking more about depression and other mental challenges that people face. Thank you so much, and you all have a good night. We're gonna,
Yeah.
You.
share the recording for those that need it. I did request for it, and somebody requested for the PowerPoint. Are you willing to
Oh,
share it,
yeah, I can
Asumini?
share it. I'll share it
Okay,
with you, Rita, so you can share with
okay.
everyone. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
thank you
Have a
so
good
much.
night.
Have a good
Yeah. Good
night.
Bye.
night.
Everyone,
Bye.
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 Karibu.
Good
Night.
night. Good night. Bye bye.
Night.